sorry.
So we're done.
Ready, Patrick?
You have to
Okay.
wait for the stenographer. All set? Okay. You can continue, sir. Or
Okay,
start, whichever way you...
Here we go. I'll try to keep it short and sweet regardless of the break and still try to cover everything. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. My name is Patrick Lenahan. I am the Director of Transportation at VHB Engineering's Hop-Hog office, traffic engineer to the applicant. First, let me say that in terms of the staff report, the transportation portion that was read, I can't disagree with anything in the staff report. I think it provides a good general overview of the potential transportation implications of the development of the site as proposed. That being said, the reason that VHB was brought, part of the reason VHB was brought on the home properties team was to provide a detailed, more thorough traffic impact study for the proposed application. So what that will include, and I'm sure the board and your staff is familiar with most traffic impact studies, is an evaluation of the existing traffic conditions, evaluation of safety considerations in the project area, the site access points, the trip generation of the site, and then how the site most appropriately integrates into the surrounding roadway system to come up with a complete picture of how the site will, a complete and accurate picture of how the site will operate and any potential impacts that we might see as a result of the operation of the site, and if necessary, mitigation measures which would ease any of those impacts. Mr. Tremarco mentioned that I would say something regarding the site's access points. I'm just going to pull this out. Okay. The main access point, as was mentioned, is directly across from the senior center where we are today, which also serves as an entrance to the highway yard. That site is signalized. The main access point would happen across from it. The traffic signal would be reconstructed to the extent necessary. Likely a left turn lane would be provided on Middle Country Road to get vehicles into the site without disrupting through traffic out on Route 25. The plan currently shows 2 egress lanes and a single ingress lane with a planted median. This is the major access point to the site where the vast majority of traffic would come and go. As shown on the east side of the plan, there are 2 minor access points currently shown on Montclair Avenue. The amount to which those access points would be utilized will be determined during the course of our study. The access is certainly adequate to serve the use on the site in terms of the trip generation, which will be one of the things that's determined in the course of the study. There was a lot of talk about trip generation before. We do use the ITE trip generation publication. However, we also we have in our hands some local data to serve as another data point as we go forward. So that's what we intend to do this point going forward to make sure that we provide complete and accurate information and work with the board and staff. It will also be reviewed by the New York State Department of Transportation to get their input on it, excuse me, as certainly we will require a permit from DOT to do the work along Route 25. And that's in essence a summary of the traffic transportation issues, if the board has any questions.
I think we're going to ask all the questions collectively at the end.
Okay.
And whoever wants to answer them, who feels best equipped to answer them, can answer them.
Okay.
I think we'll do it that way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to call Steve Cataldo, local architect on this project, and he's just going to talk a little bit about the buffers between the residential property owners and the subject parcel, the way it's being or proposed to be developed. Steve?
Steve Cataldo, architect, 14 Carl Avenue, Smithtown. The project was designed to incorporate buffers around the perimeter. This large green area you see here is where the sewage treatment plant is going to be located, but
Please.
the sewage treatment plant is primarily underground. The amount you're actually going to see is very small, and you can see all in here, this is all going to be planted very heavily. In fact, you probably will not see it from the road. Actually, there are no odors at all. In this area here, south of Browning, between the eastern property line and the parking lot, you have about 70 feet of heavily wooded area.
Could we please have no comments from the audience? You'll get your opportunity to come up and comment when he's done and the presentation is done. You all have a chance to come up and say your piece. But please let the presenters speak so that they can get done, and then you can get to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along the eastern side of the property, there's also going to be this heavily buffered area. This, in effect, is approximately 170 feet from the adjacent roadway. And then all along the side over here, you've got a neighborhood of about 30 feet here and another 60 feet over here of heavily buffered area. The area along Main Street, Middle Country Road, will also be planted and landscaped. So the entire site is going to be very nicely landscaped and buffered. And this is a conceptual sketch of what the architecture is likely to be. Is there any questions?
Steve, can you
Later.
Can you bring those architectural drawings up so the public can see them?
Lean it against the podium, maybe,
Sure.
on the table?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
My client has worked with the planning department to come up with this conceptual design. It may be changed. The planning department may make more recommendations based upon a further review of the site. Right now, this is an application for a zone change. It's not for a site plan or a layout as to how the apartments will be set up. That'll come later. But I think the planning department was correct, and the study that was done recently shows there is a very, very strong need for apartments in our town. And it's not for people from the East End or the West End of the county. It's for our own young people and for people, as was indicated, that may want to retire, sell their house, take an apartment here, maybe have a condo or a house in Florida. There really is a need for this. Home Properties is the kind of company that wants to do the right job. And if the only example I can give you, and it isn't Home Properties, but it worked out well, as indicated by Frank DeRubius in his commentary, was Avalon and the Avalon project, which totally has over 600 dwelling units, whether they be apartments, condos, or a small lot type houses. And that's worked out very well. And that probably is just as bad or worse if you look at the traffic patterns there, because it's a short run between the Sconset Highway and Jericho Turnpike. Our traffic person has indicated what he feels the traffic situation is, and the planning department also has indicated that they don't feel it would be a traffic issue. In fact, if a different zoning use was there, I believe they indicated in the department review that there would be a worse traffic situation than if there were apartments. So again, just in summing up, my client is not here for the short haul. If he is granted this change of zone, or if it is granted the change of zone, they will be building apartments and then maintaining them for the long haul. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration. I do want to comment on the recommendation with respect to the POS deck and this board's recommendation by the planning department. My client realizes that this probably will be POS deck, and the reason being, well, part of the reason would be it was a town landfill, or part of it was at one time. So one of the things we did with another application I had was we asked the board, and I did check this out, of course, with my client, that perhaps you could recommend to the town board to move on POS decking the site if they so choose to do that, so that we can get on with doing a full DEIS. In fact, our engineers are working on it now. That's going to take maybe 9 months to a year. It'll completely vet every question that I'm sure that the audience will have. So I ask the board to take that into consideration also.
Okay, I have a question, and I'm just going to address it. Whoever feels best qualified to answer it can do that, and I'm going to let any of my colleagues on the board ask questions, and then after that, we're going to go into the audience. My question is, and I don't know who would feel best able to answer this, is what is the shortest distance between any one of the buildings, or the proposed buildings as they sit right now, and the closest residence? Can anybody answer that?
Defer to one of the engineers. Okay, Kevin Walsh from VHB.
Yeah, Kevin Walsh from VHB 2150, Joshua's Path, Hauppauge, New York. Just based on the conceptual plans we have right now, scaling it off, it's about 200 feet to the northwest to the houses on Browning.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board have any questions of any of Mr. Tramarco or any of the other persons who appeared?
I have some questions. First, it's always very appealing to collect $1 million in taxes. However, when you have residential development, it's very easy to be underwater on those taxes. You build a three-family house, a one-family house with 3 or 4 bedrooms, a couple of kids are in there, we actually end up collecting less in taxes than it costs us to educate them. Based on the past experience with these kinds of communities, how many children would you expect to be living there? Because we'd have to pay for their school, their education.
It's a good question. I'll ask
I'm glad you
John
liked it.
Haig to answer it if he could.
Our experience is that obviously the empty nesters don't bring a lot of children with them.
Right.
But it tends to be very young children, you know, say newborns to 3, 4, 5 years old. Not that many of school age. However, I will say that as part of the environmental impact statement, that's one of the things that'll be evaluated. So we'll have, you know, some good data for that as opposed to just kind of anecdotal
Well, you're
discussion.
projecting 260 units. From your past experience, how many children do you think school age would live there?
Our past experience, I'm going to say a dozen or so, 15, something like that, because we don't have the large units. We don't have the large units. But again, I would say that, you know, it can vary from location to location, and rather than just take a guess, which is all I'm doing.
What is
you
the
know.
projected square footage of a one-bedroom? What is the projected square footage of a two-bedroom?
The one bedrooms, the idea conceptually at the moment, again, this is all subject to, some level of change as we get into further refinement of the design. But conceptually, we're thinking of having two sizes of one bedroom. Say one would be low 700, 725, 730, something like that. Larger one would be around 800, which is fairly typical suburban garden apartment kind of a size.
That's the one. That's the one.
That would be the one bedroom, correct. And then the two bedrooms would probably be on the order of 1,000 square feet to 1,100 square feet. A lot of those, we typically set those up with 2-bedroom, 2 baths. The idea being that way you can have a roommate situation,
All right, the anticipation then would also be for there to be a dinette, not just 2 bedrooms, kitchen, and living room. You're talking about 2 bathrooms, probably space for a dinette, because I'm thinking somebody moves in there, maybe they have no children, and then it becomes a longer-term arrangement for them than they planned, which is often the case with apartment dwelling. I'm just trying to get a handle on the likelihood of somebody staying there and maybe raising a family there, as opposed to retiring there or just starting out and waiting to move on to buy a house.
Well, there's a fair amount of turnover in the apartment communities as it is, because people, they get their life changes. They might get married, they might buy the house, or whatever the situation might be. So yes, the idea within a 2-bedroom apartment of say 1,000 to 1,100 square feet, that kind of a range, you would expect to have the 2 full bedrooms, the 2 baths, and then a living room type of area, and then a space for a dining table. And obviously a full kitchen.
What is your expected rent range on these units? Because another factor is higher rents. People don't stay so long if they're looking to save for a house because they need to move on or they never get into that house.
That's true. We are estimating the smaller 1-bedrooms would be on the order of $1,800 or $1,900 under the current situation. The larger units could probably go for $3,500, $3,800 maybe.
Now, based on your past experience, what's the likelihood of your coming back seeking a co-op conversion or something like that to turn these into actual sale units?
We don't do that.
Just from the department, has anybody done any research on the developer or the landlord actually to see, based on past town experiences on Long Island, whether they've been good landlords? I mean, I've heard only good things so far, and that's positive. I'm just wondering if anybody has checked with the other towns or done any due diligence on the quality of the landlord operation.
I just checked 2 of their sites in Islip, and that was just by a drive-by, and I walked the sites, and they appeared to be well-maintained, and they were modernized. I think there was an investment put in one of them that was rather substantial. It was an old apartment complex that was modernized. So that's the extent of my observation at this point.
I know one of the fears someone expressed was odor from sewer. I really think that's very unlikely based on my own past experience with situations like that. But I'm just wondering if there was any background on whether there's problems. I can't imagine the sewage facility here really creating an odor in our community. It's not a reason to approve them or disapprove them, but I don't think that's a realistic threat.
Well, all the package plants that we have that are in garden apartment complexes are within garden apartment. They're right adjacent to the apartments. The one on the Galleria is right north of Carrabba's, and it's right between Carrabba's and the apartments. And these are package plants. These are underground. These are not, when we talk about a sewage treatment plant, these are not above ground like the Kings Park sewage facility. These are, we call packages, and it's a leaching field arrangement that usually goes in them. Okay?
Yes, that should be no problem.
Well, when you say there should be no problem, this assumes that they're run correctly. We had problems with the Smith Haven Mall, and there was an issue of whether they were doing the proper maintenance and stuff like that. What you can't guarantee is how somebody will run something in the long run. But if they're run correctly, there are no problems with these plants. But in the past, there has been issues with regard to individual operators not properly maintaining them. And Smith Haven Mall was the one that we had the worst example with. Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe give the community an idea of what could possibly go into this site if this application for a change of zone was denied.
We did an assessment, rough numbers, and what we were doing was trying to figure out what would be logical for this particular area. It's light industrial zoning, so the most benign use would be an office park. We have one right down the road on Terry Road, right at the intersection of Terry Road. An office park on 20 acres would be approximately 200,000 square feet, and these would be in one-story type buildings. And this is, we're going with the most benign use that we could generate. That type of an office park we looked at would generate approximately 3,000 trips per day in terms of what the ITE projects, as opposed to this apartment complex, which, given the numbers and the size of the units, are about 2,000 trips per day. We also factored in probable other things that could occur that are typical on Jericho Turnpike, and one of them being a counter-service restaurant. We have McDonald's, Wendy's, and the like on those particular areas, and it is likely that if somebody wished to put in something like that, or what we call a high-volume or high-service restaurant, the counter-service restaurants are generally built on 1.5 to 2 acres in site, and they generate between 1,500 and 1,700 trips per day. That's just on that. And a high-volume restaurant, such as an Applebee, Fridays, and the like, are generally around 3 acres in size, sometimes 4, and they generate in the neighborhood, depending upon whether they have the size of the bar and other aspects of it, somewhere around 2,100 trips per day. So if you were looking at this site and trying to think of what could go on this site, I would start with the most benign use as an office park, and then you would go on from there and add things on. All the scenarios that we looked at in terms of the development under the current zoning generate more traffic than the garden apartments.
What was our total acreage here again?
21 acres, 22 acres.
22.5, I think.
That's
Yeah.
it. I just have two other quick questions. You're asking for 260 units. If we approve something less than that, below what number do you feel a project here is not viable? I know I'm asking you to bargain with yourself or against yourself, but
I don't think we get involved in approving how many units. I think that would come at the end.
No,
Right now,
I
we're just
realize
dealing
that.
with a zone change.
I realize that.
And we just recommend.
If you want to get his
I get
opinion,
that.
I'll be more than happy to have him give it to you.
Well, in order to operate these kinds of communities efficiently, because of the infrastructure, because of the amenities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you really need to get somewhere, you need to try to get as close to 250 units as you can. So can you make it work with 235? Yes, you probably can. But as you start to drop down, then it becomes more and more difficult, particularly with
Understood.
the high standards that we use to maintain our properties.
So possibly a 10% decrease that's the range, within which.
That would be about
Okay.
right. Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody on the board or comments?
For the planning staff, you made reference in your memo regarding Galleria, which has upwards of 600 units.
That's correct, yes.
And that's where the main entrance is off Terry Road by Maureen's Kitchen. and
Yeah,
at
CVS and the child daycare
Because
center.
I've gone to both of those places, and I haven't seen any traffic, coming in and out of there. And I've been by there at all hours. Where is the traffic?
There are
go?
two entrances. One is on Terry Road, one is on 347. And in terms of the comparison of the traffic volume, what's on Terry Road right now in that particular location, the numbers and the volumes, we do have traffic problems on Terry Road. But what the traffic is because of volumes that's on Terry Road itself coming from other areas.
Right.
The contribution to traffic from that complex, we've run the numbers several times. It's very insignificant to the
I
overall
haven't
total.
seen any traffic, going in or out, so I was just wondering how the
Well,
traffic
this is
plan was
one of the
devised.
reasons why we, in our plan, that we referred to the plan for 25 that we published, is that if you're looking at traffic mitigation, in comparison to commercial uses, residential apartments generate very little traffic by way of comparison to commercial uses. By way of comparison to single-family uses, Obviously, because of the higher densities, they generate more traffic, but it is not that high.
And there's 600 units, you say, in there?
There's 315 units of Avalon rental apartments. There's 196 for Windcrest, that is the condominium units that are there. There's 44 single-family homes on what we call starter home lots, which are about 7,500 square feet. So that's 5 and change.
And there was a sand mine or something there
It was
prior
a sand mine operation. The original area that was being used as a contractor's yard, and it was a reclamation project that we worked on. It's a total of 85 acres.
That's more than double the intensity of this?
Yes, far more than double. I would also mention that what included in this particular project, the Galleria project, was the commercial development that wraps around that particular site. And that is starting from the 347 side that wraps around with the Walgreens. That was all designed with traffic in mind in terms of, because it was zoned commercial. All the parking lots were integrated, they're combined. We eliminated the curb cuts, and we actually got an award for that from the state of New York as a traffic mitigation measure to reduce traffic on that particular location. And on the Terry Road side, the commercial uses are all complementary to the local neighborhood. They're child daycare centers, CVS. There's going to be a small office building going in on one of the vacant lots. And it's worked out, we think, very well in that particular area.
It has. I've been in and out of that site. And I would agree with Conrad. I've never encountered any real traffic getting in and out.
Mm-hmm. And we anticipate that to happen, the same volume of traffic to happen in this particular location.
Any other questions or comments from anybody on the board?
Yeah, one of the questions we struggled with in a prior application was the vacancy rate for these types of complexes, and I wonder if the gentleman could speak to his vacancy rate on Long Island for your holdings there. Could you give us an idea of what your rate is there?
I believe at the moment it's about 4%, 4% vacancy. Right now, the apartment market's very strong, but it's typically strong in Long Island, you know, even in the downturns.
Thank you.
Adam, we just finished the counts for Avalon, and it's 2.5%.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, before we start to take any questions or comments from any of our residents, I just want to say a couple of things and let you know what's going on, where we're at, and what happens from here. This applicant wants to change the zoning classification on this piece of property because the current zoning classification will not allow the building of what they want to build. We ultimately will make a recommendation to the town board as to whether we think changing the zoning as they propose to do is good or not good from a planning standpoint. Now, you heard Mr. Tramarco talk about SECRA and the word pod deck. SECRA is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. It's a state law, and it sets up a process and procedures that deal with environmental issues. Now, the town board is the one that makes the determination on how SECRA would affect this particular project. If the town board gives it a positive SECRA declaration, that means that an environmental impact statement has to be done. It's a very large, all-encompassing study of all environmental and related issues, which probably will take around a year. So this will not be voted on tonight by us, probably won't be voted on in 2014. Now, given the piece of property that we're dealing with, everybody expects that the town board is likely to issue a positive secret declaration, thereby requiring the environmental impact statement to be done before anything goes further. So as far as where we stand now, this board does not appear at this point that we're going to take any action on this application until the town board has made its decision on the SECRA process. Again, we think that there's going to be a positive declaration. which will require an environmental impact statement to be done, which, if that's the case, will take usually up to a year before anybody will go forward on this application. Ultimately, when that's done, if that's the way it goes, it will come back to us. Then at that point, we'll be in a position to vote on it. And when we do vote on it, we will be recommending to the town board whether they should allow the zone change or not, because it's the town board that changes the zoning on a piece of property, not us. We just analyze it and we make a recommendation to them as to whether we think it makes good sense, for lack of a better word, from a planning perspective. But ultimately, the decision on whether the zoning is going to be changed or not changed will rest with the town board, but that is pretty far down the road at this point. We're only in the very beginning of the process. So with that being said, I am going to open it up to any questions or comments from any of our residents. If you do want to make a comment or ask someone a question regarding this particular application, please, by show of hands, just show me how many people wish to make questions or comments. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up one at a time to the microphone. You can please give your name, your address, and then you can ask a question of the board, the planning department staff, Mr. Trimarco, who's the applicant's attorney, or you can address the questions to any of the people who he's had speak here tonight if your question pertains to their particular area of expertise. So what we're going to do to try to keep things in somewhat of an order, we're going to start with this half of the room first, and we'll take everybody's questions or comments from this half of the room, and then we'll go back to this half of the room, but please just come up one at a time. All right, so starting with this side of the room, anybody who wants to speak on this application, question or a comment, please come up and state your name and address and say what you want to say. Nobody. Okay. Oh, there's one.
My name is Deborah Zito, and I live at 73 Tiffany Way, Nesconset. I'm here for a couple of reasons. Number one being that I'm an educator in the district, and when renters, correct me if I'm wrong, people who rent do not pay taxes, correct?
Well, they don't pay property taxes, but the
Right.
landlord who owns the buildings pays property taxes to the town on the buildings.
Okay, all right. Well, that was one of my concerns. You answered my question with that. However, since I've been a substitute teacher in the district for 6 years now, I've seen the class sizes go from around 20, 21 students. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to 25, 26, 28. When you have a 260 garden apartments, you have to have an influx of students coming into this district. There is no way our schools are going to be able to support or accommodate all of these children in the district. The other thing is, my son's house is right here. Now you're telling me he's going to be down the block from a sewage treatment plant? I have three grandchildren, 4, 2, and 10 months old. They're going to be exposed. This stuff is going to leach into the ground. Our Long Island water is dependent. It's groundwater. This is what we're drinking, and it makes no sense to me to put a sewage treatment plant in a residential area like that. That's ridiculous. Also, this Browning Street is a cut-through. I stand on the corner right here in this house, and I watch Longo come down the street. I watch buses come down that street, speeding to get off the traffic on 25. I watch it all the time. I was there babysitting this afternoon. I was babysitting from 1:30 to, well, no, I take that back. From around 4:30 to at least 6:30 at night, I can't even get out of it's 50-acre road. I can't get onto 25 because I have to go the back way because I can't get out onto and make a left to get to my house on Browns Road. This is constant. And I fear for my grandchildren's life. They're little kids. I have to like guard them because they can't come out. I fear that they're going to get hit by a bus, a car, or some kind of landscaping truck. So, and if you break through there, there's going to be even more traffic. According to this, the Browning Street is going to be extended. Am I right? There's going to be more traffic cutting through there. They cut through there and they go up to Woodlawn. I see it all the time. So for my own grandchildren's safety, I ask you to not pass this or put this forward because this is really going to be a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to make a debate. I want the people to say what they want to say, and then we'll go from there. So otherwise, we can go back and forth and back and forth. We know what the issues are. Okay, is there anybody else on the left-hand side of the room who wishes to come up and say anything? Please do.
Hello, my name is
Hi.
Marissa Scanapico. I live on St. James Avenue South. Scannappico. My question is regarding the two entrances on Montclair Avenue. And I want to know, I'm down around those dead ends by Smithtown East. I want to know, are the buses now responsible to pick up the children who are going to, the 12 apparent children who will be living in these apartment complexes? Will the buses be responsible to turn into that parking lot to pick them up? Will the children be waiting? Will they have their own bus to get to the schools that, as stated, are pretty full?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first off, the school bus system is operated by the school itself, so we have no say-so in how they do it. However, what we have provided in all of our sites is we have bus stops within the complex that are usually in Avalon and all the other new concepts. The buses go into the sites, and there are bus stops in the sites themselves.
So the same neighborhood buses go in there, or they have their own,
The school,
or that's determined
whatever
by
the school buses
I
do.
think it really depends, ma'am, on how many students are there and what grades they're in. That's something the school determines.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, anybody else who was on the left side? Okay, please come up. Name and address, please.
Terry Galata, 93 50-Acre Road, South Smithtown. I have a couple of questions. He described that there would be one-bedroom and two-bedroom apartments. Is there any three-bedroom apartments in the complex?
I believe he said there were some, but if any
Okay.
one of the gentlemen wants to address that question.
How many?
5% three-bedroom.
Okay, so then there are going to be school-age children that are going to be there. And they're saying 12. However, did anybody take the time to check out the apartment complexes that we already have presently? Jefferson Avenue, there's one off Browns Road, to see how many children are in those complexes that we're going to pay school taxes for? Because from my understanding, they're not paying school taxes, correct?
No, well, they don't pay them directly. However, they pay rent to the landlord, and the landlord
Pays
pays
property taxes.
Well, the school tax that you pay is from your property taxes. If you look on your property tax bill, most school districts, the total property tax bill that you have, about 2/3 of it is school taxes. 1/3 of it is all the other taxes. So the property tax is assessed based upon formulas that they use, and it's assessed based upon the building. So generally, make it simple, the bigger the building, the more tax they pay. Again, that's just a very big generalization. So the people who live in the apartments, they don't pay property tax directly, but the owner of the apartment complex pays property taxes on that building, whether there's no children in it, one child in it, or 5 children in it. So the complex will generate tax revenue for the school district. Again, about 2/3 approximately of the average tax bill, if you ever looked at yours when it comes once a year, is about approximately that is totally school tax. So
Okay.
I would imagine the same percentage would apply to these buildings, that if in fact this passes and, you know, we're way down the, that's way down the road, these buildings would be treated like any other buildings, that they would generate property tax, some of which would go to school tax.
Okay.
Frank,
And the,
Hold one second, Frank, we don't have a bifurcated rate here either. They'll pay the same tax rate that all of these homeowners pay, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So they'd be
Okay.
paying on a different assessment because of a higher value, but they'll pay the same tax rate everybody else here pays, incorporating the county, the town, the school, et cetera.
If
Okay.
you've ever rented a house, your landlord paid property tax.
okay. And everyone keeps comparing the Galleria on, you know, with all the apartment complexes. However, the Galleria has an entrance onto 347. There really is no reason for anybody to take the entrance from Terry Road. So to say that that's not causing any kind of traffic or any kind of backup, that's not causing any traffic because the people are going out onto 347. The people from this complex have nowhere to go but 25. And as we all know, we can't get to Smithtown right now. There's not enough there's so much traffic on that road from one way to the other. So they have an alternate exit. These people don't. They're coming right down Jericho Turnpike, which means, in turn, they're coming through our neighborhood as a cut-through to be able to get to either Edgewood Avenue, to pass through town, or to get to any other outlet other than 25. So that should be a serious consideration. The other thing you said was the office parks was a benign, I believe that was the word that was...
I think, ma'am, the question was, assuming this particular zone change is denied, the town, you know, the town board ultimately says, no, you can't do it. The question was, what other types of uses could
Right.
go on that piece of property under the current zoning? And I think one of the potential uses that could go under the current zoning is an office park.
Right, now would an office park be 4 stories high, 200 feet from residential land?
Well, I think that depends on the office park. An office park could be 1-story buildings, 2-story buildings, 3-story buildings. It could be all in the middle of the property. This is just hypothetical. You know, no one is planning to build an office park there. The question was just asked of what other types of things could go there.
But I'm saying,
this
in
doesn't.
comparison to a 4-story building that's 200 feet from there, if there's any option at all, that would seem to me to be a more viable option.
Bear in mind that Mr. Zerubius made the point that some of those other uses, some of which can go in now without a zone change, would have a higher traffic utilization curve. So you'd see even more traffic for some of those uses. You might trade the 4-story
I
building.
disagree with that, but maybe I don't.
Well,
yeah,
it's not
I-
something you disagree with. It's statistical as to the use.
I don't know about that. Okay, that was my question.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, is there anybody else who was seated on the left-hand, or my left-hand side of the room who wishes to speak? Ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Santa Olson, and I live on Marchant Drive. I just have a few comments. At the office park would probably be activity 9 to 5. The apartment complex is 24/7, you know, with traffic, and I agree with a lot of the statements that have been made. I have one question. If this does go through, how is this being handled in regards to all the wildlife that lives there, all the raccoons and the rats, and there's quite a large population over there? How would
Well,
that be handled, that they wouldn't come, you know, into our homes?
I suspect that if the town issues a positive declaration under the SECRA Act, which everyone expects, given the piece of property that we're talking about them to do, those issues will all be addressed as part of that environmental impact statement, which is a very large, all-encompassing study of all environmental and related issues. So that would be part of that study.
Do you know what they do with them?
I think every piece of property it's all done on a property-by-property basis. They have to see what's there first, and then they'll make a decision how they best should be dealt with.
I guess, do they capture them? Do you know anything about it?
Depends on what's there, ma'am.
Well, we know there are thousands of raccoons there, and we know there are thousands of rats there. And we do know there are some wild cats.
Well, like I said, as part of the study, someone will be determining exactly what is there. And once they determine exactly what is there, then they'll make a decision on how best to remove them if that's what has to be done.
Okay, because the town was there a few years ago, and what they were doing was setting traps and capturing the raccoons and then kind of labeling them and letting them go. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who was on the left side of the room? We've got two more, okay.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Zito. I live at 8 Browning Street. My house is right there on that map. I have a question. According to this map, it looks like they're extending Browning Street. As of right now, Browning Street ends right here. My house is the end of Browning Street. It turns into Market right here.
Use the microphone, please.
You could use the mic, please.
Right now, Browning Street, this is my house. Browning Street ends right here, and it turns into Marchant. Why is this stay Browning Street right here? Are they extending the street?
If I could address that
Sure.
issue. Unfortunately, what you have up before you is what is called a tax map, and what is indicated there is what is called a paper street. There is a paper street that runs through that.
Okay.
So what is shown as a street there is the paper street. There is no plans that we are aware of or any interest in touching any part of the northern portion of this property.
Okay.
So that street that was shown there is because it's a paper street.
Okay.
That's all it is. But there's no plans to do any street work in that location, and there's no access points at that location.
No access points at that location. Okay.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's John Dempsey. I live at 107 50 Acre Road South. My question's basically on Browning and Marchant. It shows that you're not doing an entranceway there, but who's to say later on that they don't put an entrance there at that point? And as far as Montclair, I was reading somewhere that they said that they were actually going to make that a dead end, and so that would mean that all the traffic from those two sides would actually come out onto Middletown, Middle Country, and if they wanted to go to 25A, most likely they would turn back on 50 Acre Road South and cut through our development, which, you know, which would be really a nightmare because, you know, it's a small block and, you know, it's just ridiculous that, you know, all this traffic could eventually funnel through our block. I also see there's a house shown over here. I heard someone mention that that house was sold. So is that going to wind up being another entranceway, or is that just going to wind up being like a total through block going straight to Browning?
Can you answer any of the gentleman's questions or concerns, Frank?
Well, first off, as far as access points go, once it is settled through site plans, access, and we've built multiple condominiums, apartment units all throughout the town, doesn't change, period. It never has. Once the site is done, it is generally approved by what is called the Board of Site Plan Review, and unless there is and I know of none, unless there is some sort of condition that occurs sometime in the future that is absolutely necessary to open it up, there will not be a change in the driveways here. This particular site, as well as all other multifamily sites, are basically accessing two streets, and that's what we do for most of our multifamily sites, and that's it. They don't change after that.
Okay. So is it true, though, that Montclair is actually going to be cut off?
Okay, I'm not party to that study, but I can tell you what I've read in terms of this. The town board issued a study by its traffic safety department as to the feasibility of it. The last memo that I read from the traffic safety director said that he anticipates that there would be an increase in traffic along Arlington Avenue and therefore would not recommend the closure of Montclair Avenue. I don't know what the town board is going to do after that, but that's the last I heard.
Okay. And then it's in regards to the to the home, like I said, I heard that that whole home was sold, whether or not that's true or not, and how would that affect the overall plan that's here, as far as another access point, or because like I said, our my main concern is that people are going to swing back around, go onto 50 Acre Road South, and zoom through our community to go to Woodlawn. And a lot of people use it as a pass through as it is, and to increase the flow of traffic would be horrible.
Okay, I can't speak with regard to, possible people coming down your street. Most roads are used on Jericho Turnpike or in Middle Country Road as bypass because of the congestion that's there. Although I would mention that we're trying to work with the state on the problem with regard to 25, which was really intersection issues with regard to Arlington and Southern Boulevard and Lake Avenue, which is really causing most of the problems on the east side, and you have the famous one-lane conversion in Smithtown on the other side. Right. I will tell you that with regard to, we're not planning on changing any of the access points here. The primary access will be determined by the state of New York by their permits. The state of New York will require one primary access onto their particular road by the light and one secondary access, which we will service on Montclair Avenue. That is very difficult to get around the state requirement on, and that was an issue both with the Sonic site as well as with the Hamlet or Country Point, where you have to have a side entrance in order to get a permit to access the state road when you're on a side road. So we meet those requirements. There will be no other access points. As regard to the single-family home that's in the middle of this particular property, I'll let the applicant address that, but we have encouraged the applicant to acquire that particular property because it's, in our view, we could come up with a better site design by eliminating that, as well as eliminating the road itself as an access point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there anybody from the right-hand side of the audience who wishes to come up and speak? Please just come up one at a time, name and address, and then you can ask a question, make a comment.
Hi, my name is Howard Justice, J-U-S-A-S. I live at 15 Shetland Lane in St. James. And I lived there about 12 years, and I take my life in my hands every time I try to exit onto Middle Country Road. It's ridiculous. It's gotten worse in the last 2 years than it's ever been. And the street that you're going to be using for these homeowners or these apartments is probably one of the worst streets to use at all, because if you're adding 260 units, that means you're going to add about 500 cars, because you're talking about these are going to be all young people who are going to be using the same roads that we use 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 at night. And it's probably two people work. That's 500 and something cars. Plus the babysitter who comes over in the same hours is another 100 cars. So you're going to add 600 cars to a street that is overtaxed right now. So that's a real concern of mine, because I know trying to get through from Terry Road up to 50 Acre Road takes me about 20 minutes, and I hate to make left turns onto 50 Acre Road. And in morning, it's the same thing, the opposite way. It's ridiculous, the traffic. So you're adding 500-600 cars to our congestion.
Thank you, sir. Next.
My name is Bob Demustes. I live at 145 Montclair Avenue, St. James. First of all, D-E-M-O-U-S-T-E-S. First question I have is the northeast corner. I'm sorry, I may have missed. What is the usage of the northeast corner of that property?
I believe he said that's where there's no buildings there.
Yes.
I believe the gentleman said that's going to be where they're going to put a sewage treatment plant.
Okay, sewage treatment plant is going to go there. Then down here on the Midwest side, what is this area?
Anybody want to come up and? The gentleman is asking, lower left there. He's pointing to it. He wants to know what that is going to be.
That's the subsurface leaching field for the sewage treatment plant.
So you're going to send it from over there over to here?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. All right, next item I'd like to address is, again, what everybody else has talked about, is the traffic on 25, and also Montclair Avenue. I don't know if you guys, obviously you're all here from Smithtown, so you've been reading what's going on in the papers. We've been pushing to get Montclair closed. Already, the traffic study from Mr. Crowley's office has come out and said Montclair Avenue experiences over 1,500 cars on a daily basis. You're turning around now and having 2 entrance and exit points on Montclair Avenue, and you're talking about a projected 2,000 vehicles a day coming out of this facility. They're not going to go on Jericho. No way. They're going to shortcut up into town through Montclair. And by the way, Arlington Avenue, which Mr. Crowley has stated is going to increase traffic on Arlington, you have to go to Arlington Avenue if you go down Montclair Avenue. So you know what? If we cut off the traffic at Montclair, we're going to cut off the traffic on Arlington. Okay? So some of these items and things that have been stated, some of them appear to be false statements. Okay? So I have some real problems with the amount of additional traffic. I understand the guys over on Marchant who are complaining about the shortcutting. We've been living with the shortcutting constantly. They come through Montclair and they go to 347. That's how you beat the traffic. You're beating it by shortcutting it. Also, that's the reverse direction, because you don't have to sit at the traffic light on Arlington. You shortcut down Montclair and you can turn right onto Jericho. Okay? So trip generation is a major issue. I really recommend right now, I don't think the project's a bad project. Personally, I think it'll improve the area because the place is a nightmare. But the other question I do have is, why would you guys propose to put a facility like this next to a transfer site that the town has now proposed? Right behind you is going to be a transfer facility where they're going to bring in construction and demolition material. We're already living with all the dirt and dust from that facility. You're going to have that blowing all over a beautiful site like what you're trying to propose. I don't understand how you can even think about putting something like that in there. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question, Mr. Tramarko. I don't know who wants to answer it, but the gentleman was talking about access onto Montclair. Is there, in this proposal, access onto Montclair or not? Okay. Next. I thought you said it just one.
Good evening. My name is John Miskulin. I live at 92 Arthur Drive in Smithtown, and my last name is spelled M-I-S-K-U-L-I-N. Certainly some comments and some questions. The first comment is I think I'm a little concerned at the opening statement by the planning department. I think they're a little too enamored with this program without really understanding everything. I think the comment with respect to mass transit is ridiculous. I mean, I know we've been throwing around ITEs and whatnot. I know a little bit about this, and there's something called the TCQSM, which is the Transit Capacity and Quality of Service Manual, and Smithtown is dead last. They grade them in letters, and we're an F. So if we think we're going to take an F system and add all these people to it, it's not going to work. You know, we heard that we're going to have $1 million worth of tax revenue, of which 2/3 are going to go to the school system. So that effectively is about $660,000. It takes about $20,000 to educate one of our kids a year. So that means that 33 children can be educated. The 34th, guess who's going to pay for them? We are. So we're all in the red already, because the 12 is a very modest number. I think we're going to be a lot more than that, especially with, you know, these 2- and 3-bedroom apartments. I also am a little concerned that we have over 2 parking spots per unit. I mean, what's with the deal with having so many parking spots? That's nearly 600 parking spots for 260 apartments. If we're going to have, you know, a young family in there, why do we need more than 260, 300? We can save some land there. And I agree with this gentleman here. I mean, why can't we flip this over somewhat and take some of the mechanicals here and move them a little further away, maybe towards Main Street. One of the last things I want to share with you is Mr. DeMarco, I think, said at the beginning that this is you're not building and then running. You said this is building for the long term. How far in the long term are we going? Because I see this is a pretty detailed document.
Sir, please
here.
take the microphone.
Yes, sir.
If you're going to step away, you can take it. Thank you.
But there seems to be no delineation there. It kind of just ends, and there's no trees delineating the end of the property. Are we going to go north? Are we going to go north to Arthur and certainly 50 acres and to the school potentially? I think that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Embry. I live at 19 Marchand Drive North in St. James. I live on one of the blocks that you don't really see off the map here, but I can attest to the traffic cut through from Jericho to go up to Woodlawn. Just on Monday, I sat in front of my house, and I watched 42 cars go past my house in an hour and 15 minutes. And I think that's quite a lot and I can guarantee not one of them was going into any of the neighborhoods there, because they usually go about 50, 60 miles an hour on that block. Another thing is, what I'm concerned about is the height of these buildings. Who needs a 4-story building in the town? What other building in Smithtown is 4 stories? I mean, I don't understand why we have to have something so huge. I mean, that would be like a spot where you can drive off the expressway and you say, I live in Smithtown, and just look for the buildings over there, because that's how high it's going to be. It's like a project. 2 stories maybe, 4 stories absolutely not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Sconzo. I live at 144 Montclair. I am directly impacted by the 2 exits that come out onto my block. Like Mr. Demusich had said, the amount of traffic we receive now is just absurd. They come down Montclair to Arlington, down Arlington to Roosevelt to get to Lake Avenue to bypass the lights. Smithtown is already congested enough. I asked the board, turn to page 2 of the handout that these politicians, because apparently they can't tell the truth, handed you. If you notice, the second one down, they had said that this isn't a viable situation with less than 260 apartments. Levittown, which is a nice area, it's expensive, just like St. James. There's 82 units. How is that viable when you said nothing less than 260? Go down to East Meadow. That's another expensive area to live, just like St. James and Smithtown. 80 units. Apparently that one mustn't be doing too well either. If you go down to Levittown at the bottom, there's only 40 units. So how is anything less than 260 units not viable when you have 40 units in one area? Apparently it is viable. The other thing is 12 children. Somebody addressed the bus earlier. They don't need a bus. Somebody's going to take them in a Suburban. Let's face it. Any young people are not paying $3,500. Like the gentleman said before, well, if they need a roommate. So what does that mean? They can't afford their rent. I live on Montclair Avenue for 12 years. I'm a lieutenant in New York City Fire Department. My wife is an RN at St. Charles Hospital, and we still struggle to pay our bills. So what kind of people are living here? What is the percentage of low income that's moving in? Because New York State has a percentage of low income. What is the low income? Is that 10% low income? Judging by the places they build, Coram, Bayshore, Patchogue, Central Islip, those are low income places. So what are they trying to do? Bring more low income people in. So now they're going to burden our schools, and the amount of traffic is just staggering. They have been asking New York State to do something with 25A for over 10 years. They still haven't done nothing. And they're not planning on doing anything. They talked about putting a turning lane in. Where are they going to put a turning lane in? As you know, going through Main Street, they already cut it down to 1 lane. So if they put 2 lanes in to try and ease traffic through Smithtown, what are they going to do? They're going to go down to 1 lane and put a turning lane in? Like I said, most of the traffic are going to go onto Montclair and then out the back way. Me personally, if I got to go over to the mall, I don't take 25A or 347. It's a nightmare. I go to work at 5:30 in the morning, I sit in traffic. I come home at 8 o'clock at night, I sit in traffic. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Happy 11 o'clock. My name is Chris Peterson. I live at 3350 Acre Road South. I'm a teacher. I just wanted to talk about the schools a little bit. I moved here within the last 2 years. I taught in the school district. I love the school district, and I really put my money where my mouth is by moving here less than 2 years ago. Mr. D'Amato and the other gentleman mentioned just the cost of educating one child is a huge amount, and it's something that the Smithtown School District isn't having the easiest time passing the budget as of late. Same with many of the school districts on Long Island. We closed Nessaquag, is that accurate? The elementary school? Wisconsin, and I believe that saved almost $800,000-ish in the ballpark. But even that closing of a school is something that we needed to do to pass our budget. That's not going to really make much of a difference if all we're going to make is, let's say, $1 million off of this type of housing. So I just think adding more and more children to the school district and not really having enough behind it is just going to up the class sizes, and it's one of the worst ways to affect one of the districts that I think is doing an excellent job here on Long Island. So, I mean, if we attend school budget meetings, school board meetings, we can become more educated just about what this type of action is going to do to our schools. So I think that's a very important piece, is all of these students that we are going to need to pay for. It's not just going to get paid for by chance. People are going to have to come up with the dollars to do it. So I'm just hoping that's strongly considered by everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Klein. I live at 23 Marchant Drive in St. James. I just have a question for you gentlemen. You talk about the beautiful greenery that you're going to put that is facing Middle Country Road. What about over here that faces the houses? How wide is that greenery going to be? On Browning?
So, ma'am, you're talking about the buffer on the north side?
Yeah, we
Okay.
talk about on Middle Country Road, but there's no residents there. What about up here by the houses? What kind of buffer is there going to be to block sound and the view of 4-story buildings?
Somebody want to address that for her, please? Somebody come up, just say who you are and address the woman's questions.
What the
Just
plan
give your
calls.
Just give your name again for the record.
Yeah,
just so we know
Kevin
who's
Walsh
speaking.
from VHB Engineering. The buffer along Browning Street is going to be obviously heavily planted. The town will require that. It's about 25 feet as shown on the plan right now. The buffer along the northwest side is, I believe, in excess of 65, 75 feet. And again, it will all be planted in accordance with the town's regulations and
When you say
requirements.
25 feet, you mean from the driving area to the outside of the property? Okay.
Wait a minute, Kevin, excuse me. If you take a look, and I think it's this way, if you take a look at the aerial photograph, and I think you will see that where the primary buildings are to the immediate north of that area is a wooded area that's up there. Yes, that's not a street. Unfortunately, again, the paper street is shown there, so the primary buildings would be there. And I believe the question that and that covers, if you take a look at your particular drawing or illustration there, the first building, the L-shaped building, is entirely abutting that particular property.
That's correct.
In other words, that's there. The first building, however, is right by the street, and I think that's where the narrowness of the site is. And just for the record, we have already told the applicant that, and they could verify this, that we're not permitting the building to be located there. This is a conceptual plan. We want the building moved out of that location.
Okay, and
So
that'll be part of
that-
the process.
Yeah, this was a concept plan, so we had requested, we had identified that building as unacceptable. So with the planting, what we hope to do, and we will, and by the way, that also goes for the leaching fields, but we'll deal with that when we deal with this, the environmental impact statement. But our plans are, from the planning department side, is there's currently 200 feet of woods along that particular area which we want to maintain. That's what our objective is, and that's why we went to 4 stories here, was to be able to do that. So I want to, you should not be able to see the buildings directly from where you're at.
Because this one is not going to get approved.
That one I want gone. Or
Yeah,
we're
this-
recommended, I already explained to the applicant, we're not going to recommend that
This
one.
is a proposed layout.
Okay,
It's
I
subject to
understand that.
modification based upon
That's fine.
what happens from
My
here.
other question is if there's any confirmation about that house in there. My other concern is about an additional building right there where that house is. Can we get any confirmation on that?
Well, no, the applicant, as far as I know, the applicant is in, I'll let them address that issue. We have encouraged them to buy that particular building. And if they don't buy that particular building, then we're going to redesign this site around that particular site, that location. But we feel that that building, it's going to be kind of, with the street and its location, will be kind of silly in the middle of this whole area. But if they can't buy it, we'll redesign around that particular site.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danielle Black. I live at 21 Marchant Drive in St. James. I have a question and then I just have a comment. My question is, you keep talking about your apartments being 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. Do you have a limit to how many people can live in them? Because to the tune of the rent that you're expecting young families and young single people to pay, there are going to be more than a 1 person, 2 possibly people, 3 people living in those apartments.
There are limits.
Could you elaborate?
I am not involved in the property management end of the business, but I can find it
Sir,
out.
please come up and just say who you are, just because we're making a record here, and we just need to know who that is.
Yes.
We know who you are, but somebody reading it wants to know too.
I'm Don Haig again with Home Properties. Yes, we do have limits on occupancy limits, but I cannot tell you what they are, and I'm not going to make any more guesses tonight. I can get that information from our property management people and submit it into the, if there's a way to make it part of this record, I'm more than happy to do that.
Well, there
Town
is. I
code.
think what the woman is asking is if it occur, we don't go as a town and inspect it. There are you're correct, Mr. Oshkom, that there is regulations with regard to that. But we leave it up to the landlord to enforce those regulations unless we receive a complaint.
Okay, and obviously, I'm going to address the big elephant in the room. Like, what about our housing values? I'm pretty sure none of us moved to Smithtown, St. James area to have a 4-story apartment building. In the current market, we already know that all of our homes have decreased in value, and I'm only asking that you consider what building this complex will further do to the value of our homes. Most of us in here have already taken a beating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Gugliotta, 102 50 Acre Road South. I just have a question. Who pays for the environmental study that gets
Generally,
done?
the applicant does. The person who's making
Not
the
the
application.
taxpayers.
Not the taxpayers.
And the town doesn't pay for it. The applicant pays that full year-long study or however long
Whatever
it
has
takes.
to be done, it's their responsibility to do it.
Okay, that's what I need to. Thanks.
Good evening. Actually, it's almost good morning. I'm just going to, a lot of my issues are already addressed, but I'm Mary Ellen Sconzo. I live at 144 Montclair Avenue. And first time meeting all you guys, but I've seen Mr. DeRubius numerous times because we have attended all the town board meetings regarding the traffic and the safety of Montclair Avenue and our surrounding neighborhoods. It's very nice to see that we have a traffic and safety gentleman who's an expert. My question for you is, have you spoken to Mr. Mitch Crowley from Smithtown at all? He's our traffic and...
Sir?
He's our traffic and safety gentleman. Crowley.
Sir, again, we just need your name so she can put, the stenographer can put that who's speaking.
Patrick Lenahan, VHB. At this point, we have not spoken directly with the town's traffic engineer, which we will be doing going forward. We have had several discussions with Mr. DeRui's office, however, at this point. Thank you.
That's great, because I've lived there for 12 years, and I've never spoken to him either, emailing him several times a year and calling his office. And as we've said before, there was a traffic study done on Montclair Avenue. Hopefully, we'll hear those results. But just a couple of things I just wanted to tell the audience, and if the board didn't already know, that we have been fighting to close Montclair because of the traffic and the safety. The safety is horrendous, that we are going to see. If it's not a child killed, it's going to be an adult killed. The police, we have gotten Suffolk County Police to sit there, and on a regular basis, within 15 minutes, they've given out 5 summonses. So you know what the traffic and the speeding is. And it's not just Montclair, it's all our surrounding neighborhoods. Regarding that the impact will not be of the entrances on Montclair, where is the supermarkets? All the way down by the Bull, King Cullen, up by Lowe's, they're going to go to King Cullen. So they're going to be going through our neighborhoods to get to the supermarkets. The bus situation. Right now, that area will be probably going to Dogwood Elementary School. My children go to St. James Elementary School because there's been a change of routes. The school buses do not go down to Montclair and Jericho because of the traffic. So they turn around to go back out. What are they going to be doing when they pick up the 12 children? If you just come to our neighborhoods, we live on 3 dead ends going into Smithtown East. Just come. There's like 200 children living there. So I don't know what you're thinking. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John Pettit. I live at 141 Caldwell Avenue, which is 1 block west of Montclair. We have no access other than coming out through Rutherford and Montclair or Arlington or something like that. Now, I've lived there for 47 years. I moved here because of the quality of life, because of the quality of the community. I've seen many, many changes over those many years. Some of them I wasn't too pleased with, but they were changes and you have to make progress. This one is off the wall. This is over the top. I mean, a 4-story monstrosity in a single-family private home development is ridiculous. I mean, you just can't put this monolith in this particular community. Also, in looking at this artist rendering, first of all, it's deceitful because the town property, that large green area, is shown as part of this development. It is not. It's town property. Second of all, the proportion is way off. The number of buildings cannot be fit into what property they have or is available to them. So I know this thing is going to end up being a monstrosity, or this is deceitful. The other part, I'm not going to even address traffic. Many people have spoken about traffic, and they've more than adequately covered that point. I just want to amplify one point. Mr. Seckler, who was the traffic expert from the preceding applicant, he mentioned that there are 27,000 vehicles per day going through intersections nearby. That would be 347 and Middle Country. 27,000. What are you adding to that? I don't know where you folks all live on the board, but I do believe that you travel around the town, probably not as intensely as we all do because we live here. But if you come, I invite you to come through here during morning rush hour, during evening rush hour, on weekends, anytime, when the traffic is unbelievable. The Jericho, I just want to remind you, Jericho Turnpike, Middle Country, next down from 2 lanes to 1, about a quarter of a mile to our west, stays a single lane until it opens up to 2 lanes once again, about a half mile up towards 347. I mean, you just can't do that on a single lane in each direction road. Oh, they'll modify it. Oh, they'll put in turn lanes. That's not going to change much. All right, enough on traffic. I don't want to beat that to death. What I do want to dwell on, though, and remind you, is just the simple quality of life issue. A 4-story monolith in our community is beyond reason. And second of all, it's just simply a case of the type of people that you're going to be having in there. They indicate that they're going to be roommates and this kind of stuff. You're talking about transients. You're not talking about people who are moving in, like we all did, with the intent of putting down roots, with the intent of raising our families and living there for, well, in my case, for 47 years. Point being, this is not the type of thing that we need in a residential, single-family, private home community. And, aside from the nuts and bolts of traffic, thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Is this guy up already? Oh. Well, that's one, right.
George Filippo. I live in what's soon to be a sewage dump right here. The fact that we're discussing this right now is, at this time of night, it blows my mind. This is an abomination, I think, to the community. And to my fellow neighbors and friends out there, these are the reasons why this should not go through. There are no 4-story apartment buildings anywhere in Suffolk County except for hotels. Okay, so we're going to put one of these right now in the middle of our residential areas. This is definitely going to lower our property values in an area where school taxes for homeowners are already going up. This 4-story building is going to draw an unusual gang violence and gang fights over territory. And this information is given to me by my neighbor, who is a Suffolk County forensic police officer. And he said that the drive-by scene in Huntington Station, in Brentwood, and Central Islip, and Wyandanch will come to Smithtown. And the same type of people that live there will be brought in, and the riffraff that was mentioned before are going to bring some sketchy characters to our neighborhoods. Besides traffic, which was beaten to a dead horse, but I'll mention it again, traffic on Route 25, which at times is impossible, will actually get worse. Can you imagine that? Yes, middle and low income need places to live, but as the 1% of the criminal element takes over this complex, even they will not want to live there anymore. How many days, weeks, months until the tags or the graffiti start to show up all over our neighborhood? I just wanted to let you know that I moved to Smithtown 10 years ago with my wife, and I now have 3 children. And we didn't move out here. We moved out here from Queens to avoid this. So please, let's fight this as much as we can, as best as we can, because these gentlemen are, from what I understand, this house right here, and I've done my research, I think a sex offender lives there. And I believe that these folks are about to make that man a very wealthy individual selling his property so they can build another entry point to this property. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Marisol Filippo. That's my husband. And yeah, we moved here almost 11 years ago. And the reason we speak like this is because I lived through this. This is how it all starts. Now, I would like an answer. How much is it that you have to go to low income, Section 8? Because I know there's a percentage that you have to allow to come in. Because, can you answer it?
Ma'am, Mr. Rubius can answer that question.
Okay, the first question is they're not required to do Section 8. They're required to do what is called workforce housing under the state of New York. And what that means is that they have to set aside 10% of the units that are affordable to people making 130% of the median income of the town of Smithtown. And what that means is in the town of Smithtown, the median income for a single person is $65,000 a year, going up to a family of 4, which is 106,000. You add 30% onto that, they have to make units, 10% of the units set aside that are affordable for a single person making basically under $82,000 a year. That's basically what they have to do. There is no Section 8 in this project.
Okay, well, same thing. What happens is you get one person with good credit. Let me move in. Hey, come move in with me. She has 3 kids. She has 2 kids. In one apartment, we'll have those 12 kids you're talking about. In a 1-bedroom apartment. I've seen it. I lived through it. That's why we came all the way out here to Smithtown. My husband commutes almost 4 hours a day so that I could live out here, stay at home with my kids. Be safe. Now, what's the point? I'm going to put a for sale sign, and not only me, and I'm sure many others will. And then what's going to happen? You're going to have empty homes and empty apartments. Because that's what it comes down to. I've lived through this. The stuff that comes in, it's not positive. It's like New York City coming out to Smithtown. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what a lot of us signed up for. You think our properties are not going to go down? They are. This should stay a single-family resident. That's it. We deal with all these car dealerships. I'll take the eyesore. I don't care. But you know what? Leave us as single residents.
Mr. Tramarko, is there anything you want to say or add at this point? Or are you okay with us going forward from here?
Just a couple of issues that were touched upon by members of the audience. The sewage treatment plant, which naturally everybody should be concerned about, will be controlled by the health department and state-of-the-art. So, you know, the issue of what goes into the ground has to be, first of all, inspected by the health department. There's a sewer operator, sanitary operator on the site, and the water that goes recharged back into the ground is not contaminated in any way. That's why you have a sewage treatment plant. There was a question about the house that's on Marchant, I guess, towards the, well, at the end of Marchant. My client has attempted to purchase the property, but there has been no agreement with respect to the price. Finally, I asked the board to do what they did with another case, I mentioned it in the beginning, where you recommended to the town board to pause deck this application. The reason being, why waste all that time? Let us do the pause deck, let us do our environmental report, and let's vet out all of the issues that I'm sure most of the people here tonight are concerned about. So the sooner we do that, the sooner we'll know, as well as the community knows, whether this is a viable project or not. So we ask the board again to do what you did with KPE and recommend to the town board that they do that. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant is responsible for getting that done. The applicant has to pay for the study, whether it's, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, if I could answer what an environmental impact statement is. An environmental impact statement is prepared by the applicant, and that is known as a draft environmental impact statement. That's a DEIS. The applicant then has to pay the town $20,000. That's our fee for reviewing that environmental impact statement. And that impact statement then is published, and there is a period of approximately 2 months in which the public is allowed access to that particular document and may raise any questions or any analysis with regard to issues within that report. Then what happens is the applicant is then required to respond to any and all questions that have been raised by the public or anybody, other concerned applicants with regard, or concerned residents with regard to matters that were raised as questions. And he prepares a response, and that's called the final environmental impact statement. There is a public hearing at which time the public is permitted to address the issues one more time, and then the town board makes the determination as to whether or not to accept the findings of that particular impact statement. Now, the impact statement must cover all types of scenarios, including a do-nothing option and what that would take, a build option as to what it would take under the current zoning, as well as what the applicant will do. So all those things are presented in the report. Basically, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. All right, the planning department has recommended that we ask the town board to make a secret determination as soon as possible. And they're also recommending that we postpone any further action on this matter until the completion of the environmental review. I think that would only make sense. Before we make our recommendation, let's see what the environmental issues are and how those issues people intend to deal with them. So with that being said, I'm going to move that we adjourn this matter and request that the town board make its secret determination as soon as possible, and that we will postpone any further action on this until the town board has done that, and whatever other procedures have to be done are done based upon their recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? So adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, the last
I think
item
we
on the
do.
agenda is this.
Okay. We should have did that one before this.
You're just assigning the performance bond.
We can adjourn the meeting, right?
No, we have one more, I think.
We have one more response. It's just the signing of the performance.
No, I did that already. No, no.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
This one, number 18.
Motion to adjourn.
Says, oh, I did that already. We don't have to. We don't need
Okay. Great.
any testimony on that, right?
No.
I did it.
Motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. I don't know, Frank, when you started explaining the environmental impact.